Hello everyone, and welcome back to Ozark Threadworks. In today's episode, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks for sewing out the paint to quilt block on your own machine. I'll give you some ideas on fabric selection, hooping, loading the design into your machine, and I'll follow up with some of my painting techniques and how I get that all set up. So please stay tuned. Now for my fabric, I prefer myself to use the pre-cut white 100% cotton fabric that you can buy from Walmart. Very convenient. It comes in a multitude of colors. For our projects, I do prefer using the white since you are going to be painting it. Now for the batting, I use a low loft needle cotton batting. You don't want something that's real heavy in the middle of your quilt piece. And for the stabilizer, I just get this big old roll from online, and it is a medium weight tearaway stabilizer. So I've already pre-washed the fabric. What I did was go ahead and cut my fabric to the size of my hoop, and then taken that in and ironed it itself. Kind of a smaller piece you have to iron. And what I've got here is I have already taken care of that. I've got my layers here. You do want to make sure that you've got it squared off so it fits the hoop. I always try to make it, at least an inch on each side of where it's going to be hooped. And as we see, I've gone ahead and layered the pieces. I've got the stabilizer, got the back fabric, the batting, and the top fabric. So now we are ready to go ahead and hoop a piece of fabric. And do that according to your machine's instructions. What I like to do is go ahead and kind of line up my hoop here. Might need to loosen the hoop a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. And again. If you see any excess slack in the fabric itself, what I do, I'm going to go ahead and loosen this a little bit more. You don't want to pull the fabric too tight. You want to just have it just perfect. What I'll do, if you do have the extra slack in the fabric here, I'll go ahead and pull on the edges a little bit. Just enough to get a little bit taut. You don't want it tight. Just taut enough that if you were to throw a quarter on the top of it, the quarter would bounce. And that looks good to me. I'll go ahead and tighten my hoop a little bit more, and I'll go ahead and press in a little bit more, and that looks good. So we are actually ready to take this to the embroidery machine and start sewing. I will get everything set up and I will meet you back there. Okay, so I've got the design loaded in the machine. You will want to have two different colored bobbins ready to sew out. I usually use a black and a white bobbin. The main design itself is going to sew out in the black color. The quilt stitching on the outside will be the white color, or I recommend using the color of the fabric that you're going to be sewing on. If you do need to resize the design for your specific hoop, I'll go ahead and click the size button here. At this point, I strongly recommend you sticking with the proportionate size buttons to scale up or down, rather than using the height or the width. That will distort the image. You'll want to stick with your proportionate buttons here to size it up or down. And I'll go ahead and set the black thread in the bobbin here. Go ahead and load the hoop on the machine, and we will go ahead and start sewing. I've already got the top thread threaded. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and go ahead and let the rest of the design sew out, and I will go ahead and start back up when we start the quilting. So I've completed the main part of the design. I'm going to go ahead and go in and switch out my bobbin thread for the white thread. Again, this is for the quilting itself. I've already changed out the top thread. Put our hoop back on. And we are ready to go. So we've started sewing the stitching. I'm going to go ahead and put this on pause, and I'll return when we get done. So we have the design finished. So what I recommend at this point, if there are any hanging stitches or loose stitches, go ahead and nip those out of there. I guess I'm particular when it comes to any excess thread. Yeah, got it. Okay, so at this point we are ready to go ahead and take it out of the hoop. Set that to the side. I do have a couple of more threads in there. Get those out of there. There we go. So we are actually ready to start painting the block itself. I go ahead and leave it as it is. I don't go ahead and cut it right now. I'll go ahead and get it painted, and then we will come back and square it up and decide what kind of project we're going to be using it in. So I'll go ahead and pause here and get my paints and everything set up, and we'll be back here shortly. Okay, so now that we're about ready to paint, I'm going to go ahead and go over some of the supplies that I use. When it comes to paintbrushes, I want to have 3 different types. Got the flatheads right here, and then you want one with a fine tip on it for the really sharp points. You'll want to get you a painter's palette. I also use aloe vera gel. You'll want to use some pink soap mixed with water in a solution right here for rinsing your brushes. And paints, so I use anywhere from a mixture of metallics, crystals, inks. There we go. And when I've determined what paints I'm going to use, then I will go ahead and add those in here. And I use a combination of mixing my colors. I just like the way that they come out. It gives me a whole new look, and it kind of expands your colors that you may not have by mixing colors. So for instance, I will actually use the Lumiere paint here, and a corresponding maybe ink or even crystals, and eventually mix those just to see what colors I get. And it's amazing what colors you may come up with. But it's a great alternative to having to buy a bulk of inks or paints to use in your project. when you can simply mix and match what you've got. You can find great deals on the different fabric paints on eBay, Amazon, maybe even Walmart, but check out, what kind of deals they have. Never hurts to have a surplus of different colors on hand. And I think we's about ready to start with the painting. I'm going to go ahead and pause here, go ahead and get my colors figured out, and I'll be back with you shortly, and we'll go ahead and start painting. So we're ready to go ahead and pick our colors for the paint a quilt block. I've gone ahead and picked my colors from the color wheel. I just googled color wheel and found one that I like. What I think I'm going to do on this project here is I'm going to stick with the blue greens and pick some of the pinks to go along with it. So I've already got my colors selected. Got my palette, my paintbrushes, water to rinse with. I also recommend grabbing you some paper towels to wipe off your paintbrushes when you get to that point for a different color. And I'm going to go ahead and get my paints in the color palette here, and I will be back shortly. So I'm down to my last couple of colors here. I'm going to show you actually how I mix those in with the aloe vera gel. The other colors, I've gone ahead and picked this range here for right now to start off with. Started from here, working my way around clockwise. So I got a couple of more. I'm going to do the pink colors next. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and open up the aloe vera gel, and I will go ahead and put a drop in each one of the modules there. Clean myself off here, and go ahead and take the pink crystals here. And what I do is, since we do have a larger design I'm going to be working with today, I'm going to go ahead and probably a little bit more. Go with that amount right there. We can always add more. And next is going to be the ink. Now what I do here, you can do it one of two ways. I've got a clean brush here. What I usually do on most of the colors is with the clean brush go ahead and dip it in the paint you're going to be using, or the ink. In this case, this is the ink. And go ahead and mix that in with your aloe vera gel. The aloe vera gel does help from your paint drying out real quickly. Let's go ahead and rinse that off. Got my paper towel here. Wipe that off. And what I did not do is mix my pink here real quick. Rinse that off. Okay. So I will be, as we go further, we'll be mixing some of these together to come up with a completely different color than what I've already got here. That kind of helps minimize having to have so many at one time. I do have some in the background here. I have not used that yet, that I may incorporate with some of these colors as we progress further in the design. But to keep track of what I've got done so far is from counterclockwise or clockwise. I'll start with the first color and work my way around. I'll go ahead and keep these in order so I know where they're at on the spectrum here. So right now, these are the colors I've picked to start with. So I'm going to put this on pause and get my quilt block ready to start, and I'll be right back. Okay. Before we get started, since you do have the extra fabric on both sides of your design here, I'm going to take this side here and go ahead and fold that under. There we go. Just in case you were to drop some paint or something like that as you're coming across the design there, you're not going to get that part contaminated. Now I start out the design from the center and work my way out. I do have my paint brushes here. For the design here, there are a lot of open areas, so in most of it I'm going to be able to use the regular brush on most of it. There's a spot or two I might do the fine tooth brush to get those fine points in there. So what I'll do, if you feel that you need it for safety or security reasons, you can always use a paper towel to kind of cover the rest of the quilt block as you're painting, in case you were to spill or drop some paint somewhere. There is a possibility that if you do get paint where you didn't intend it to be, I do have some tips for covering those up, so that way you haven't ruined the block. We'll discuss that more into the video as I start painting. So let's see here. This is middle here. I'm going to start off with the smaller flathead paintbrush there, and like I said, let's do playing around with it, deciding what color you want to start with. I think since I'm doing the light greens into the pinks, I think I'm going to start with a green color, and we'll just go with the light green. Now I don't get my paintbrush full of paint. I start off with a little bit. If I feel I need to wipe some off, I'll do that and come over here and work my way into the design. And I'm going to go ahead and focus the camera, zoom the camera in so you can see what I'm doing. And actually, I think on this one here, I may end up using the finer tip one for those points. I'm going to set that off to the side. Go ahead and grab my fine toothbrush here. Grab us a little bit of paint. And we will get to work. And I am a stickler on getting as close to the point as possible. To me, it just gives the project a better finished look. You don't have any white spaces sticking out. And trying to get in there and get that point there. And sometimes if you do see, because of the stitching, you may have to, like I said, go back in there. Just keep going at it till it looks good to you. There we go. Like I said, I'm just using a very little bit on my brush. Trying to get into those fine points. And when I digitized this to sew out, I made sure that I went back over and gave it a second outline, a heavier outline. To me, that helped with not allowing any of the excess paint to get over into the other area. Just an added layer of security as far as I'm concerned. Now I did find that if you'd use the inks themselves, definitely make sure that you mix it in with your aloe vera gel. Using it alone by itself, it's so fine a liquid that it does soak through. Trying to get those points there. A little bit more. There's another white spot there that I don't like. There we go. Get in there and get that point out of the way. And one more. And I think this is the only part of this design here that we need to use this small brush. And what I do too, again, if you felt you need it to use a paper towel, you know, to prevent any spills and stuff like that. But I'm so accustomed to not having a whole lot of paint on my brush when I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this around. I do turn it around to be able to get to the other parts. And we are about done with this first segment. A little bit of a white still showing up there. And to me, the fun part of this too is being able to play around with your colors. Like I said, I have gotten so many different variations by mixing my paints and stuff like that. And when I feel that I'm getting closer to the end of the design and stuff like that, I may go ahead and say mix, just for my own sake, mixing maybe one of these pinks or red colors in with the lighter green. I may even mix lighter green in with one of the darker color greens. And I always utilize the space here to mix my colors, so that way I'm not contaminating the individual colors themselves. So we are done with that. I'll go ahead and rinse my brushes. So kind of give you a look at what we've done so far. So I said I tried to get in there and get the points of the centerpiece. I think it looks pretty good myself. Go ahead and turn our design back around. Let me go ahead and rinse these brushes. Get my paper towel here to get them cleaned off. Okay, so I think we're done with the fine toothbrush there. Let's see here. So color-wise, I think we're going to go light greens. You know what I'm thinking? I'm going to just go out on my own here and try something. I'm going to take a little bit of that turquoise color there. Rinse my brush. And I'm going to see, maybe use some of that same light green color there. Mix that in with that. Of course, like I said, I don't want the next segment out to be that same color, but if I can play around there and kind of get a good idea of what that would look like. And what I do is I go ahead and, before I mess with the design itself, go ahead and maybe put that on your paper towel there to kind of audition that color before I do it. And that's really not enough dark to distinguish between the two. But however, what I think I'm going to do, decisions. I'm actually going to just go ahead and go with that color there. I think that would look good right next to that light green. And so I don't paint from one direction. So I can be going this way or this way. It just depends on the flow of the paint and the design itself. So I'm just going to start here, up in here in this corner. And doing it this way, you're able to get those fine points along the edge of the stitching. And so I just keep going over there until it looks like it's covered it pretty good. And that looks good to me. And we'll go back and grab some more paint. And come back the other way. Now I know there's a lot of talk out there that, you know, when you're painting fabric, that you're supposed to, you know, work it in one direction. And that's probably my downfall. I don't always follow rules. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, go ahead and continue painting. We've got the basis down. If I do come across any that I've accidentally got paint in other areas, I will go ahead and show you what I do to cover that up. You know, a lot of people are thinking, oh my gosh, I just ruined my project, what do I do? I don't think that way. So, when I do come across that, or if I get a little bit of paint somewhere else, I will show you what I do to cover it up. By the time it's all said and done with, my pieces have always looked good. I have complete faith that yours will as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, go ahead and get the majority of this painted. I will come back when we get to the last few segments, let you take a look at what we've done so far, and we'll go from there. So I'll see you back here shortly. Okay, so I do want to jump back in here to kind of show you what I was talking about earlier. I did have a little bit of overlay in the paint right here in this white section here that I'm going to try to figure out what color to go back in and cover that that flaw up. This is another example where I was talking about if you feel that you need to, use a paper towel to kind of protect certain parts of your design as you're painting, that's fine. Most of my problems are this here. You just got a little bit of paint that's overlapping the next area. What I think I'm going to do here is go ahead and do a different color green, maybe a little bit darker than what I've already used in this next area, and that will cover that block up there, and you won't see that there is any extra paint that flowed over to the other area. Again, you might want to keep that in mind as you're doing these, that if you do have a little bit extra paint, maybe work around your color you're working with. Maybe do something a little bit darker than the previous paint color, and more than likely that's going to take care of any of the bleed overs. But in this case, that is all going to work out fine, by doing the other darker color around there. But certainly play around with your colors, and I'm sure you'll have good results. I'm going to go ahead and pause, continue painting, and I'll be back shortly. Well, I wanted to thank you for taking your time to watch this sewing and painting video. In this video, I provided you with my personal tips and tricks to give you the best results for your paint-a-quilt projects. And I'm personally interested in seeing your masterpiece, which you can upload on the website under the Customer Showcase tab. And remember to visit our website, www.ozarkthreadworks.com, where you'll find our new Paint-a-Quilt Block series, new tips, projects, and the Customer Showcase. I wish you all a great day, be safe, and see you in the next episode. Thank you.